My name is Adele Beim. I am a Holocaust survivor, but I was fortunate to be hidden. So I did not have to go to the camps. My message of hope is that it should never happen again, which we've heard multiple times. And unfortunately, anti-Semitism is on the rise again, all over the world. And I don't understand why.
Hello, my name is Sandra Scheller. I'm with the Chula Vista Heritage Museum and the South Bay Historical Society in another episode of Our Lives, Our Future. I'm with Adele Beim. Is it pronounced Beim or Beim?
It's really Beim, but
Beim.
most people here say Beim, so we made it Beim.
I like Adele Beim because that is how it's written, B-E-I-M.
Right.
Adele, you are a Holocaust survivor. It's hard to believe because you look so young. I mean, when I see you walking, you look like you're 50 years old.
Are you kidding?
I'm serious. Look at your hair. Look at who you are. You look beautiful.
Thank you.
Welcome to our Holocaust exhibit here in Chula Vista. Our goal, Adele, is to let people know that here in Chula Vista, with the help of our mayor, Mary Salas, our head librarian, Joy Watley, that we as a community will never forget the Holocaust and the importance of and the message of what the Holocaust represents. I hope you understand that this is important to us here in our little shtetl of Chula Vista.
Yeah.
Adele, tell me a little bit about you. You were born when?
I was born in 1937 in March, and we lived in a smaller community close to Amsterdam, Holland, and I didn't know much about the war yet. In 1940, it broke out in the Netherlands, and within a few days, our army could not withstand this mighty German, so they capitulated, and little by little we were forbidden to do anything.
So what are some of the things that you were forbidden to do?
First of all, I couldn't go to school. I was actually first in the preschool, and then at the beginning of kindergarten, I was taken out because no more Jews were allowed to go to school. My parents could not conduct their business anymore. We couldn't go on the trains or any public transportation. Everything was forbidden, but I didn't understand much of it because it happened when I was only 3. But the worst part started in 1942.
In 42.
In 1942, they started rounding up the Jews.
You're now 5 years old.
Yes. And they started rounding up all the Jewish people throughout the whole country and brought everybody to Amsterdam. They knew everybody, their names, their birth dates, where they lived, because the police had to help them with their records, and some of them were actually helping them. We called them, they were like anti-Semites as well. Even though I was always under the impression that Holland was very pro-Jewish. But it turned out there were a lot of betrayers as well. Now, our queen was actually very nice about, Jewish people. In fact, once a year...
So they betrayed the queen?
In a way, they did.
Yeah.
So... But my mom used to tell me that the Queen Mother at the time, her name was Queen Emma, she used to come once a year to their big synagogue in Amsterdam. My mom was a member there. She was actually a teacher there. And she was partly Sephardic. Her dad was Sephardic from Portugal. And it was a gorgeous, beautiful temple that luckily was not destroyed. There was a wall around the temple, the synagogue. It was called the Portuguese Israeli synagogue. And it was a beautiful, beautiful temple built in 1700 something. And it had, even still today, it has candelabras hanging with real candles, no electricity.
Wow.
It's absolutely gorgeous. And there was a miracle that a lot of things got bombarded and that one didn't. Maybe divine intervention, who knows? You know.
Sure.
So after the war, my mom had friends that survived. They were actually grandchildren of the chief rabbi where she used to study.
Oh my gosh.
And they had me over for holidays because my parents totally became non-believers and they did not celebrate any Jewish holidays anymore. The only thing I remember, we had matzah for Pesach. That was it, you know, for Passover.
Wow.
Yeah.
So from
And my mom was a teacher, believe
Okay.
it or not. Judaism studies, and she was amazing. She knew everything. She knew everything by heart, all the prayers, the whole Shabbat service. She remembered everything by heart. So,
but she
told us
put Judaism
Yeah.
on the back burner if she didn't want to celebrate the holidays.
she didn't believe anymore.
She just didn't
that
believe.
this could happen.
That the faith was gone.
Right. Right. And
Do you wanna hear a secret?
She lost all her family.
Do you want to hear a secret? So when my mother was in the camps, she made these little Jewish items, right? But then my mother made a Buddha doll out of bread dough and spit, a Buddha. And I thought to myself, Mom, what would make you make a Buddha doll? You know, Buddha is different. She said, sometimes you just have to figure out if you're in the wrong faith. And I remember making this doll, but going back to Judaism. So you're not the only person who's told me this. I know other people who they lost faith in Judaism because they couldn't believe that this had happened to them. So I just want you to know you're not alone when you're telling me about this.
I know. You know, my dad felt the same way. He was originally from Poland. He lost most of his family.
Wow.
Yeah, not his parents. They went to Russia with 2 daughters that weren't married yet. But the rest of his brothers and sisters, they all had children. Kids like my brothers and my age. And they were all exterminated. And my aunt, the one that I came to here in America, she told me that they were trying to get their family to go with them to Russia, but it was too hard for them to leave with little kids. So they stayed behind. And she and her sister took my grandparents to Siberia. At least they didn't kill you there.
But you froze.
Yeah, one of their sisters actually got tuberculosis there, and she passed away right before I came to the United States.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And my mom, you know, so like I said, in 42, the first thing I remember what happened to us, besides I couldn't go to school, I have these visions of my mom standing in the living room, and all our furniture was put outside in our driveway, kind of like, and there were 2 Germans kicking her in the stomach in the living room. When I was outside looking in the window, because she had sent me outside when the Germans came in, and she was crying, and that's why they kicked her. And anyway, we were told, or she was told, pack up a few clothes and you have to leave soon. Like they couldn't stay in the house that same day. So she packed up a few clothes for all of us, and by the time we left the house, the Germans checked to make sure they didn't steal anything from our stuff, mind you. That's the chutzpah they had. Looking if there wasn't anything besides our clothes that we took from our own house.
Sure.
There's still our silverware.
God forbid that you took extra something. You could have taken a photograph that had maybe a pretty frame on it, and they wouldn't even let you have that.
The only thing when it started, when she started knowing all the things, people hear, what's going on, she decided to pick up our baby albums and give it to the neighbor.
The photo albums.
Photo albums, and that's the only thing we got left.
Let's think this out. So the SS did an inventory, so they knew. God forbid you took.
Everything was outside, and they emptied their drawers, I suppose.
Oh my gosh!
All the silverware.
So when it came to the photographs, but your mother was able to get them to a neighbor.
Yeah, that was ahead of time.
Ahead of time. She already had an idea.
An idea they're going to come.
That the Nazis were going to come.
Because there was already rumors going around.
Sure.
All the Jews have to leave their homes.
And you don't know what happened to your mother's other friends that through word and what have you.
No, but after the war, we were able to find out certain things through the Red Cross.
This is what Ruthie did, yes.
Yeah, so we did find out things. And we found even they had a list of all the people that got murdered from her family in Auschwitz. With the dates when they were murdered. Because my cousin who lived still in Amsterdam, then we left for America, she passed away a few years ago. Actually, she was younger than I was, a couple of years. But she had breast cancer and she passed away. My last relative from Holland. And one of the very few relatives we had left. So she got these things in Amsterdam from the Red Cross, and she went checking and doing, because she lost her mom. My mom's younger sister. And she would always come to us and ask stories to my mom about her mom. Because her father, who survived and had married a non-Jewish woman where he was in the house. Well, I guess he got saved over there. And they didn't want to talk about anything about the war. And she was always so frustrated and upset. She knew nothing about her mother. So she would always love to come to us. And my mom would tell her stories about her mother. But unfortunately, she hated her stepmother. And she couldn't and she was upset with her father, never to say anything about her mom. He says, we don't talk about that. That was the answer she got.
And with people not being able to talk about it, then what happens is people have the attitude that it never happened.
Yeah,
and it's so important for Adele, for you to tell us, for you to come here and say, look, I'm 84 years old, 83, 84. This is what happened to me. This is what happened in my family. The fact that here I am, a child, not being able to go to school, go places, know that my father couldn't even make an income anymore.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, here comes this time where it's like, you need to leave the place that is in your heart. It's your motherland.
Yeah. In fact, what we had to do.
And you had to start over again.
Oh yeah, after the war, sure. Well, what happened was, we had to go to Amsterdam like all the other Jews. But since we had grandparents, my mom's parents living there still, we had to move in with them until we were all called to come and, go to the place. Everybody was getting notices.
Right.
You have to come to that and that building, and they come and get you if you didn't show up.
See, this is what I want to
So-
tell my students, which is really important,
Yeah.
that they already knew who was
Yeah.
Jewish, not from day one, but they did their
They already
research.
looked at- Oh, yeah.
At going to different synagogues, finding out who was on a list,
Right.
going to the different communities
They
where
went,
Jewish
they went
people,
to the city hall records.
to the city hall records.
Because every person that's born was recorded over there.
And did they have to be recorded that what religion they were?
Oh, yeah.
My
I
gosh.
think even here they do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when my kids were born.
I
they
think
wanted to
you're
know my
right.
religion. Yeah.
When my son was born, they
Yeah.
asked what the religion was.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So they know all of that. And yeah, that's what happens, you know. So we moved in with my grandparents, and within a very short period, we heard a knock on the door late at night, and they had a very small, modest little, like a flat or apartment. It was in one of these big city block houses,
Right?
because my mom's family was not exactly well to do. Her mom and dad were diamond cutters.
Diamond cutters.
That was their job. That's how they made a living, and they did not make a great living.
No, but there's a
And they
great
had-
deal of trust in diamond cutting.
And they had 6 kids, you know, 4 girls and 2 boys.
My gosh.
So when I came there, my grandparents were still there living by themselves because everybody else was married and they had their little kids. One brother had only 1 child, but all the other brothers and sisters had 2 children.
Mm-hmm.
So one day they knocked on the door from my grandparents and they came storming upstairs. 2 uniformed, I guess SS men with guns.
Well, there's your SS
And
right
they
there.
started to take my grandparents away first. They put, I still see it. They put the gun in the back of these 2 little old people going down the stairs because they lived on the 2nd story. It was the last thing I saw from my grandparents. So my dad, who was Polish, and he knew about anti-Semitism, how bad it can get, because he lived as a young person in Poland. And he said to my mom, we have to get the hell out of here. So what did he do? He took me on his bike in the back and drove me all the way to another city and took me to some customer of his.
On the back of a bike
Yeah.
at night?
Yeah. Well, he took me still in the daytime.
In the
That
daytime.
happened the second time I was in the back of my bike. And my foster father, excuse me, took me to another city because there were going to be house searches. And he found out last minute, because normally he always knew he was in the underground. And he knew what's going to happen. But this was later. But what happened with my grandparents, they took them away and took them to a certain building. And my mother, the next morning, she even went to try to release them. I don't know where she got the courage, but she did. But they weren't, of course, she wasn't successful. Meantime, my little brother was in a little nursery type of thing during the day, because my mom was still working. And he was taken away by some church people. And she didn't know for a few months where her little boy was.
I would go crazy
Yeah,
not knowing.
I'm sure she went crazy, I'm sure. But I don't remember that part. All I remember is that they took my grandparents away. And then the next day, my dad took me he had customers in small towns around
His
in Holland.
livelihood was what? What kind of, he was a diamond cutter.
No, there was my mom's parents.
Your mom's
My-
parents?
My dad didn't even have a profession. He left home when he was 16 years old in Poland. He had 8 siblings, but they were so orthodox, they were so strict, and so religious. My dad couldn't stand it. He was the rebel. And he just took off when he was 16. He went all over Europe, different countries, spoke several languages a little bit, went to Czechoslovakia, you know, the Czech Republic now.
Sure.
He was in France, landed up in Austria first, and then he went to France, and eventually wound up in Holland. And he met a Polish man that was married to my mom's oldest sister.
Okay, met a Polish man who was married to your mother's oldest sister. Okay.
And that's how he met my mother. And after a couple of years, nobody could believe she married him. She was very educated, he was not. And he was Polish, and she was half Sephardic, and those days, Sephardim thought they were a little bit up higher, like they're from royalty or something.
Mm-hmm.
They were very highly educated people.
Sure.
But her mother was Ashkenaz, so to her it didn't matter that he was Ashkenazi, you know. And she married him eventually, and all the people in her synagogue that knew her, because she knew everybody, because she was working with their children, and she went there to temple, you know.
Do you remember what your father did for work?
Yeah, he was working with textiles.
Textiles.
He had a little van, kind of a car, you know, closed up van, and he used to go out to all the small town people in the little villages, and where they had farmers and, you know, people that were pretty much in Holland. There were a lot of farmers, and a lot of the people there made their own clothes, the women.
Right.
Like my oldest foster sister, she was a seamstress, and she used to buy, you know, yardage.
Right,
she had
fabric.
yardage, she had towels, she had linen, she had like sheets and all kinds of things that he had in his van, and he showed it to the people, and they were always glad when he came.
So your father would go to different places
and he had
and provided things.
Customers,
Sure.
and they were always
And they were happy to see him.
They called, "Hi, Max." He was Max, and they always, he was a joker, so he joked with the customers, and they liked him a lot. He was very popular with them. And so what did he do? He went to these people that he knew very well, and he took me once there, just you know, on a trip to meet these people.
Sure.
So
and to show you
already-
what he did.
They knew me, so he went there, and they always liked me because I had little curls, and all their kids had straight hair, like, and they always liked me a lot. And and my dad said, "Can I leave her here for a couple months? It's dangerous right now. They're taking us away, and they already took my."
Right. So your father kind of knew.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he was there with us.
Sure.
We were when my grandparents got taken away. So so they said, "Yeah, we can keep her here," and the girls were happy. They loved it. They wanted to comb my hair. They wanted to take care of me. They were older than me. The youngest one was 10. I was 5, and he was a boy. I'm still in touch with him now. He's almost 90.
And where does he live now?
It's still in Holland.
Still
in
in Holland.
In the same house where what happened
In the
was,
same house that you were hiding?
Yeah. Well, but he
My.
lives now in the back because he built a house on his property. He was actually like a contractor. He was having a huge place in the back of his house where he had all his lumber and things, and he had employees in there, and they all knew that they had me there. Yeah, I don't know.
But nobody else knew that you were there.
Well, the people in the town, at first they were very scared, nobody knew, but eventually they took me sometimes down, like my foster father would take me to the soccer games on Sunday afternoon. believe it or not.
My.
Then I was there already maybe a year or so.
Adele, you didn't have to worry about clothing, you didn't have to worry
No.
about food, but the bottom line is you didn't have your mother and father,
Right.
and this all happened because of the Nazi regime.
Of course, yeah. So my dad just left me there, and
Do you remember crying and saying, Dad, I don't want to go, I want to be with you?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I remember coming there, and I remember they had a table in their, living quarters, like a kitchen, whatever. It's like a family room thing. And I just barely could get up to the table. I was so little still. I was 5. And they always told me, when I came back later to visit them, you barely reached the table when you came to us. They remembered everything,
Right. You barely could reach it, and
yeah,
now you were
yeah,
able to
yeah.
reach it. Wow.
Oh, anyway, they were very nice to me. They were very good to me, which was really nice because a lot of
Oh, Adele, you're
people,
so lucky.
I was very lucky. I really was. And they didn't make me make the sign. They were devout Catholics.
Sure.
Yeah.
They had respect for you.
I don't
They
know.
were what I
They had
guess,
compassion for
compassion.
the Jewish people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Didn't try to turn
and-
you into anything that you shouldn't have been.
And especially the man, the father, he was very, very, he was never scared of anything, because the mother was. I cannot blame her. She had 6 kids. If they find out they hold a Jewish person in their house, they all have to go to the concentration camps.
Yes.
You know that.
Yes.
And they knew it.
But they took a
Right.
chance.
They took a chance, and they figured, like my brother's mother, foster mother, they had 5 kids, and she was very devout Christian. And my mom was asked her after the war, how could you possibly do that? What you did, you had 5 little kids, and yet we took in my son, and besides that, she found out after the war, my mom, that they had 4 other adults in their house. They were in the cellar, and they only could come out at night. I never even knew they were there either. But I mean, that was at my brother's foster parents. And my mom asked her, how did you put together? Well, she said, that's what Jesus wanted us to do. That's how religious she was. I guess she figured Jesus was a Jew.
Yeah.
And she always said that the Jews were the chosen people. And she felt she had to be careful, watch out for them.
I got to tell you, I grew up hearing it. The Jews are the chosen for what?
Yeah.
Chosen for murder, chosen to go into a camp,
You know what?
chosen to be hated.
It's
Well,
just
what are
like-
we chosen for?
Well, it says so in the Torah that we were chosen.
But they didn't give you an answer what you were chosen for.
It's like
I haven't found it yet. If you find it, let me know.
It's like Taffy and Fiddle on the Roof.
Yes.
They ask, why don't you choose someone else?
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Well, anyhow, I guess we were very lucky, my brother and I, that we wounded up in such good families, because we heard stories.
Both of you. How
We
could you
heard
both
stories
be
of a
so-
lot of kids that were abused. They were made to work hard, wash floors, I could do what I want. I was just free.
You were not in hiding.
Not really.
No.
I mean, I was hiding in.
You were hiding at home.
I couldn't go to school, but I was in the back of the yard. I could play there. I learned how to ride a bike there, up and down, And the funny part is they had all these employees and nobody ever betrayed me. And they knew I'm
You
Jewish.
were lucky.
I know.
Adele, after the camps, after the Holocaust, after 1945, who all did you reunite with in your family?
We were the only family in my mom's family that were intact. My dad survived. There was another story how we survived. We got taken in 44. But my mom and dad came back.
He got taken to Auschwitz?
No, thank God he escaped from the train.
He escaped from the train.
Yep. He was first taken, first they found my mom and dad in a nursery. Where my foster father always found hiding places for them. And if it got dangerous, he said, you have to leave here. I'm going to take you there and there. So he would move them around. Of course, the people they were sometimes with, they got scared and they didn't want them there anymore.
Sure.
So what happened was, apparently somebody gave them an idea. There's people in there hiding, and that's at the time when the Germans were looking for able-bodied men. Of course, they were losing soldiers.
Sure.
And so everybody, even in Holland, they had to actually, come and volunteer for the army. And if you didn't volunteer, they were looking through the homes if there were young men living there. And it happened so. I have a picture with my foster sisters. The reason they took the picture of their two sons away, in case the Germans come to snoop around for boys. Their boys they didn't have any boys. They took all the pictures out and they only made a picture of my four foster sisters and me. Right after the war, they saved that picture and they gave it to me. So, my foster father was very courageous person.
Did your mother, your real mother and father, meet your foster mother and father?
Well, like I said, my father knew them.
Yes, but did your mother meet?
No.
Your
No,
mother?
I don't think so.
You don't think they ever
No.
met?
No, but she met later.
That's what I'm saying. Did they
sometimes
later on meet?
Yeah, because she sometimes sneaked up to the house so she could see me. And
Your
at
mother
one time,
did.
I thought I saw her in the window. I saw her, and then she went away real quick. And then later, when she came to visit me, I kicked her in her stomach. I can never forget this. Because I thought I saw her, and then she didn't come in. And I was angry about
You
it.
got angry at your mom because you thought
Yeah,
you
I
saw
was maybe
her.
6 years old.
You thought you saw her, that she went away,
Yeah, and she came back later.
and then she
I-
came back later.
It's like I knew she's trying to hide from me.
My.
Yeah, I can never forgive myself for that. Can you imagine? But anyway, it's not easy to talk about it.
No.
Because my mom went through so much hell. That's the problem. After the war, she was so sad. She lost all her sisters, all her brothers, her parents, and the kids, nieces, nephews. They were all taken away. Except my one cousin who survived. She was also hidden, and I found out after the war too, in the same town where I was. Yeah. And another brother with his wife and son survived. That was it. Everybody else is gone. And
Were you, as you got older after the war, were you close to your mother and father? Did you feel that you were close to your mom?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was a really wonderful lady. I didn't always get along with my dad too much. He had a temper, and I had a temper. I learned a lot from my mother after the war, of course. But what happened was too, when I was a couple years already there, I overheard my foster mother talking to her husband. And she said, I think we have to get rid of her. It's getting too dangerous. So there I was thinking, oh my God, they don't want me anymore. And I was scared, but my husband said, no, we'll wait till the war is over. And it kept me 2.5 years.
You were there for 2.5 years.
Yeah. And so when the war was over, but something happened actually before the war was over. Well, first of all, he had to take me once in the middle of the night to his sister in another town because he heard that they're going to have house searches that look for Jewish people. And then at one point, so he took me down. I was there a whole week. I remember that he took me out of bed and he put me in the back of his bike. But I can't for the life of me remember the face of his sister. And I was a whole week with her. And I don't remember that part. I know I went there, but I don't know when I was there what it was like. That's very strange.
Yeah. Do you ever have dreams or thoughts at night where you're sleeping and you think that you're on the back of this bicycle? Has that happened to you?
Maybe it did when I was younger.
Younger.
I don't remember. My memory isn't as good either, like it used to be. I'll be honest with you. Yeah, unfortunately, we're losing our memory, as you get older. So I'm trying to do word games, and I try to do things, play cards.
Sure.
Try to
be with people and
read. Yeah. I read more than I ever did. I was never a big reader. And I never had a lot of time to read either.
So, what is life like for you now, Adele? Tell me, what do you live like? You're very cautious. Are you don't? Tell me what it's like.
Well, after the war, it was hard. I gotta admit, my parents tried very hard to give us a good life, but it was not really always a happy life because my mom was always so many times sad. I could tell that she was upset because she was thinking of this birthday of her niece or her nephew and the birthday of her sister or brother. I could tell because
she related to things.
She would come down in the room in the morning before I went to school, and I could tell that she was crying. I could see her eyes were red, and I thought, oh my gosh, she's again thinking of one of her relatives. And she was very, very close to her family, very close. And she always told us funny stories too, because they had a lot of big sense of humor. Her father was funny. A couple sisters of her were very funny people. Her father was actually, could have been an opera singer. He had a beautiful baritone voice, and he was once asked by the opera company if he would come to sing with them. And he refused because they made him wear high shoes because he was short. He was too short. And he said, no, you take me the way I am.
Take me how I am.
Or forget it.
Oh my gosh.
He could have been a big
He could have been Caruso. He could have been, who knows?
Yeah.
All because of height.
My mom told me stories like that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was really funny. But her mom was a very neat lady. Always wore her gloves when she went out. And she was always...
And hats.
Yeah.
Proper.
And one time when they went to the movies, she's talking about her childhood now. They used to take peanuts with them and they would peel them in the movies. And her mother would always put them in her hand and save them to put them in a baggie. And at one point she had her hands full, and my grandpa said, "You don't need to do that here." And it was so funny. I mean, things like that. She said all the time they had something funny going on. Amsterdam was famous for all the humor. There were so many Jewish
comedians and things. Yeah.
And then after the war, nothing like that anymore. It was totally 90% of the Dutch Jews were
performers.
But they never came back.
They never came back.
And
such a loss.
A very big
people
loss.
That were in medicine, people that were performers, people that had such contributions to make that to this day. Here we are 80 years later and we're saying, the loss that we had
And look,
was...
and anti-Semitism is on the rise again.
Okay, let's talk about that. Anti-Semitism is on the rise. How do you know, Adele? What
But
is
you
it?
hear about it on the news all the time.
Okay, so let's talk about this. Most students say, how would somebody who's in their 80s or 90s know? If it wasn't for our news, if it wasn't for our computer, if it wasn't for things that we do. When you find that it's on the rise, because I totally agree, I feel like it's more than just one group that's on the rise.
It's all over the world, especially in Europe, where you think people would learn their lesson from how many countries got destroyed by the Nazis.
By the Nazis, that's right.
And look at it's mind-boggling that it still exists in the 21st century.
Yeah.
I don't get that.
Same here. Same here. How many languages do you speak now?
Well, I don't speak them anymore, but I
What were
learned French, German,
English?
once German, and English.
Uh-huh.
So when I came here, I got a job within a week. Yeah.
And what was your livelihood here in the United States?
Better.
What is it that you did? What was your livelihood?
Oh, I was working in offices. I was working in an office as a secretary to somebody. Typing letters, taking dictaphone or shorthand.
Wow.
In Holland, I went already. In Amsterdam, I had a job after elementary school. After high school.
High school.
I was 16 and a half. I went to work. The first couple months before I went to work, it was vacation. So I learned stenography and typing. I wanted to go to America. For one thing, there were almost no Jewish boys in Holland left. And I wanted to get married and have a family. So I told my parents, and my dad always wanted to come to America. And my mom didn't really want to go. She said, we're too old to start again. We keep starting over after the war, and then we have to start in a new country.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know the language that much, a little. And she didn't think that was a good idea. My dad kept bugging her, and she didn't want to leave. And so I decided I want to go. And I said, if I like it a lot, you guys can come. If not, I'll come back. And the Dutch government paid my trip because they wanted to make room for more people.
Right.
We lost the war with Indonesia, and a lot of Indonesian people wanted to come to Holland. They didn't like the new regime. So they came to Holland, and it was, people would, when they get married, they had to move in with their parents. There was not enough housing. It's a small country with a lot of people coming. So, and besides for me, there was hardly any Jewish people. And my dad told me, if you ever marry a non-Jew, even though he was religious, if you ever marry, I'll kill you. Yeah. No,
Adele.
honest to God.
Because of what you went through.
Yeah, well,
Because-
and he knew.
Yeah.
He just, we didn't trust.
So you married a nice Jewish boy.
I married a very nice Jewish man. He was a lot older than me, but he was wonderful, and I didn't know. Well, I knew it ever when we got married, but before that, I didn't know how much older he was.
How did you meet him?
Through a friend of my dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happened was my dad eventually,
How much older was he than you?
15 years,
15. Okay.
he was 94.
When he passed you.
Yeah, almost 6 years ago. Yeah. But he was a wonderful person, and he looked young, so I didn't know.
He looked young and he
got
had a
out-
good-looking
Well,
wife, and
They called him the
Young one.
cradle snatcher.
yeah, he was crazy. I'm glad you said that, not me.
I was 21, and he was 36 at the time when we got married. It was funny. When I met him, this friend of my dad,
How did you think he was?
well, his friend said he's 28, and I said, well, he's too old for me. Because
Even at 28 and 21.
What happened, my parents finally, after I was 6 months in America, they came to, and they hated it in Oklahoma. but that's where they got sponsored by the same people. So was I. So my dad knew that he had a cousin somewhere in California that he never met because she came way before.
Went to California.
Yeah, well, he took a plane, I guess, whatever, and he flew to California to meet her, and he fell in love with California.
Where in California?
LA.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So your mother and father lived in Los Angeles.
And he was also working in Tulsa.
And your
He
mother
hated it.
could be with people
Yeah.
that she could relate to. in
My
the
mother,
community.
she right away got a job because she learned bookkeeping, even though she was a teacher.
Yeah.
And she was a bookkeeper for many years. And my dad, he was just working as a, himself. He started out with a good humor metal truck.
The ice cream.
Yeah. Then he had a catering. He upgraded to a catering
That is
truck.
so amazing.
Yeah. He always made a living, no matter what.
But then you went from Oklahoma to Los
When my
Angeles,
parents came there, I gave notice to my job.
and your husband
And
came
I-
with you.
No, I wasn't married yet.
You weren't married yet.
No.
Okay.
I was single. I was, 20 when I came to California. I was 19 when I came to the States, almost.
Uh-huh.
And then when my parents came 6 months later, and they went after being there for a while, they went to California.
Uh-huh.
And then they liked it, the weather was beautiful and everything.
The homes were great. You're at the ocean.
And
You're with community because of all the people there.
They were renting an apartment, and my dad made friends. He went to Santa Monica Beach, where there was a lot of Polish Jews that
Yeah.
he met. They were playing pinochle and
Sure.
cards, whatever they were playing, chess.
He was happy.
And he liked it. So he met this man who was also from Poland, and he happens to be my husband's cousin. And when he met me, he said, "Oh, do I have a boy for you?"
I
I
love
said,
it.
"Yeah, how old is he?" He says, 28.
Uh-huh.
I said, "Oh, that's too old for me. I'm only 20. Well, he said, "Give him a call. He's such a nice guy." I said, "No way." And he went to my parents' phone and he just calls up Jack. He says, "Jack, do I have a diamond for you?" He was really in the jewelry business.
That's your new name, Diamond. I'm going to call you Diamond. Diamond Beim.
Honest to God, he wasn't even in the diamond business yet, really. He was a watchmaker. He learned watchmaking through the organization in Germany. Being in the
And
war.
this was before your batteries. This was all with the wind up and everything. Yeah.
17 jewel watches.
See, people don't understand this. The students that back then,
Yeah.
a watch had these jewels,
Yeah, you had
and
to
the
wind
jewels
it every
would
day.
roll over each
And
other
they
when you
weren't
had
even
17.
automatic yet.
They weren't automatic, but the jewels are what kept the inside. They had
Yeah.
different jewels and stuff, and you
Yeah,
wound
so
it. You made it a
learned
point
that
to
in
wind
one
it.
of the art schools in Germany
Oh my
before he
gosh.
came here, because he said, "What am I going to do to make a living? I have no profession." He
Yeah.
never,
So when
So
when your husband Jack, when you met him for the first time and you saw him,
Yeah.
was it love at first sight? Did you think, my God, this
Well, I
guy is
think it
wonderful?
was with him.
With him.
I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
And I figured he didn't look older than 28, but I thought, at the time, like the cousin told me, he said, "Why don't you take you to a movie? You'll go out to dinner.
Yeah.
If you don't like him, you don't go again."
Sure.
So I said, "Okay." So anyway, when Jack called me the next day already,
Uh-huh.
his voice sounded really nice in the phone, and he said he would like to meet me. I said, "Okay," and I told him where my address, and
Uh-huh.
where my parents. I live with my parents.
Right.
I've never been on my own, to tell you the truth. So,
Until now, right?
well, yeah, sort of. I'm a widow now, but my daughter lives there.
Your daughter lives with you.
One of
Okay.
my daughters, yeah.
Great.
My other daughter's in Colorado, and I'm going there in a few weeks.
Uh-huh.
Stay there every year, a month.
Nice.
But anyway, so I started to go out with him on a Saturday night, and it was a week after I was in LA. And in the meantime, I already got a job right away. I went to the Jewish Employment Agency. They had a big building. Are you familiar with Los Angeles?
I am. What part of LA?
Oh, on Vermont, they had that building. I forgot what the name of it is, but anyway.
Near Fairfax?
No, it was more near Vermont and Western
Okay,
area.
sure. Uh-huh.
You know,
More in the downtown
closer,
of Hollywood, yeah.
Yeah, it's east of Hollywood,
Uh-huh.
close to downtown.
Nice.
And that's where I was sent to go for application. And they said, oh yeah, somebody in LA needs somebody that knows typing and stenography, whatever. They need somebody. It was a uniform company, and I went there for an interview, and they hired me on the spot.
Right on the spot.
Right on the spot.
Wow.
As a matter of fact, they were so happy with me when I got married, and then when I had gonna have my first baby, I quit, and they kept calling me back. Why don't you get a babysitter? We want you back here. I said, no, my husband said I don't have to go to work, and I would love to raise my own baby.
Yeah.
I never had dolls to play with when I was young.
Sure, right.
And she was like a little doll to me.
Right.
I like dressing
You
her
have
up.
2 girls?
Yeah, and a
Nice.
son.
And a son.
Mhm.
And a son.
But anyway, I got 5 grandchildren.
My gosh, what a blessing.
And
Do
they're
you
all nice kids.
do your children know your story? Do your grandkids
Well,
know?
yeah, actually, I gave my children my mom's story. She wrote it down.
She wrote
I
it
never
down.
wrote my story.
You need to write it. Well, now you have it documented. See?
I have it documented a long time ago.
From the USC Shoah Foundation.
Yeah, my
Right.
brother even said to me 2 years ago, he said, you know, we should go to the Shoah Foundation and give our story.
You did the right thing.
Yeah, but we didn't do it yet because COVID started.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Okay. If
So we
you
haven't done it yet.
if you need help with the connection, and I can let Stephen
He
Smith
actually, he's actually a member of the Los Angeles Holocaust Museum.
know. Yes, the
And I think that's
Tolerance
where we
Center.
got that's where they do it.
okay.
Yeah. So he told me maybe we should go together and do it. I said, okay, but then COVID started, so nothing came of it, and
Yeah.
he's been.
But guess what? You're here. You're healthy. You got through your shots. You got through the vaccine.
Yeah, and he had his shots too.
Yeah, but the most important thing is that you're healthy. You didn't get
Yeah.
COVID, and that was
But
great.
you know, I should write it down because even the relatives of my foster parent, one of them, the granddaughter,
Mhm.
she asked me if I want to write my story and send it to her.
If
But
this
I still haven't done it.
if this interview helps, when you
Yeah.
see how I put it together, you have my blessing to use it.
Yeah.
Adele, it's been so wonderful
Yeah.
talking to you. I really appreciated it. I just want you to know that we are in the Chula Vista Public Library.
Yeah.
The library is open. We usually have more people in the
I'm
afternoon
going
who
to ask
see
my
the
friend
exhibit.
Louise to come with me one day.
Absolutely, oh, she would love it because
Yeah, she lives here.
yes, this is her home.
That's her home.
We have hundreds, we have thousands of these magazines for the students and for you and for anybody who comes. Yes, my mom is on the cover, but it's a 10-page article that details a Holocaust survivor, just as you've watched our episode of Adele. And what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and say that we appreciate all our sponsors and people that have watched us. And with that, I'm going to say thanks for watching.
Okay, thanks for listening.
Schluckles mir in die Tatzen, wer wird Tatzen mich schatzen? Oi, oi, Gott ist größer, hat doch gewünscht mein Häuser, die mir sind gegeben, Häuser, wir sind ge, uns gegeben, die wir sind ge, uns gegeben.